It is 7:01, and I'll call the Historic District Commission meeting to order. As we're on Zoom, we can do a roll call. I'm Heather Getz.
I'm Patty Hippa.
I'm Ika Scully.
Perfect. And so we have a quorum of 3. The first order of business is to approve our Historic District Commission meetings that are scheduled for the 2023 year. I don't know if if anyone has any changes that they would like to be made. I'm comfortable with the date.
I do have one question. The dates looked great. The dates are fine, but I did notice that they're are they all Zoom, or are we going into the town hall, or what is the outcome of all that?
So that we tabled at a recent meeting.
You did? Yeah.
Yes. So we're still trying to decide that. We tabled really because we had some vacancies, and we also, in an effort to be able to make a quorum, we felt that Zoom was working a little better with that at the moment. But obviously, when you're looking at applications and things, it would be ideal probably to get back in person soon.
Yes,
so figure that out. What are your thoughts on that, Patty?
I like a Zoom meeting, to approve minutes and the calendar. I think that's great, Zoom. But when you have some projects, I have a much different feel when it's in person. And I think
we all agree
so much for that.
That's what I was going to ask Ika. How do you feel about that?
I agree about that too. The thing that came up in the last meeting was you couldn't really feel the siding that they were going to use. You couldn't really see the texture.
Yep.
You don't want to be too over textured. You couldn't really see it.
Yeah.
And colors don't really come through on Zoom.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
So
yes, I agree with that as well. In the past, we were able to do that. Also, I find with town meetings, some have gone back in person, others are hybrid. We're all kind of staggered at different stages, but in person, it allows everyone to be, it's just a little more cohesive as a conversation as well, I think.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Another question: if it is in person, you need 3 people, a quorum. Could one be Zoom?
Yes, so that would be the hybrid. What are your thoughts, Laura? Why don't you speak to it?
You can absolutely do that. Actually, we did that last night with the commissioner being for the zoning commission hybrid absent. It's much easier if it's just the commission that we allow to be hybrid than it is if we have an applicant be hybrid and the commission's in person. But if it's just a commissioner or two, that we can definitely try to accommodate that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you'd like to be in person,
rather than the applicant being on a Zoom, that would be difficult.
Yeah, that's a little bit more difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
Laura, how would we go about if we would like to get back to in person or a hybrid model, but
so I can certainly schedule it going forward. I'm sorry.
but really wanting the applicant there in person.
So we schedule an in-person meeting.
Okay.
And then we accommodate any commissioner who wants to attend via Zoom.
Okay.
Right.
And is that we can vote on with this calendar today, or do we need to add that?
I don't even think you need to vote on that. That's kind of you could vote it as an agenda item to a discussion on in-person, whether in-person meetings versus Zoom meetings, and then make a vote on that you'd like to meet back in person. We can absolutely do that going forward.
Okay.
Did anyone want to make the motion?
I motion that we approve those meeting dates. They're always kind of subject to change as we get closer to the actual dates. Given the agenda or not. So we still have flexibility.
Okay, so I'll second approve dates.
And I approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so the calendar dates for 2023 have been approved. The next order of business is approval of minutes. Unless something in the Dropbox, I was unable to see the July 7th. I only saw July 20th. Meeting minutes, the special meeting, was that just me? Did I miss something, or did everyone see that?
As we all look in Dropbox.
Yeah, so in the Dropbox, I just see agenda minutes from July 20th and the proposed calendar.
You're right.
And I apologize, I didn't bring it to the attention sooner. I went through things a little.
No, I'm sorry. That's an administrative mistake on my part. I will make sure that they get uploaded for the next meeting. We do have the 20th minutes
Perfect.
in there, though?
Yes, and I did get those. The only thing I saw was Ika's name spelled incorrectly on line 16.
Thank you.
Yeah.
In this digital age, my capital I always looks like an L to people. That's what they see.
That is what yep. I agree.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
So, but outside of that, I didn't see anything. And I know Patty was not in attendance, so it's difficult for her to.
She can still technically vote as long as she sees nothing wrong with the minutes, if she watched the meeting or if administratively, but that's entirely up to Patty.
Okay.
If the minute, I would approve the minutes there's no problem.
So I will make a motion to approve the July 20th, 2022 minutes with the change to line 16 to Ika's name.
Thank you.
Okay. And I second that.
Thank you. So Patty seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the 7:20 meeting minutes are approved with the one change, and then we have tabled the July 7th to our next meeting. So that's great. So pretty much we can make a motion to adjourn. This is, I think, the last meeting I've been on.
One of those items on the minutes was Heather, you requested clarification around existing committee vacancies and requirements around those vacancies. So do we have vacancies? Part of the agenda says appointment of alternates. Do we appoint some alternates, or
Laura, can you speak to it? I believe we do.
Absolutely. So we appoint alternates when we don't have enough regular members seated so that we can vote, so we have a quorum. We did actually get a new appointment that I believe just got sworn in, if I'm correct, on Monday. Elaine Lang will be joining you.
Yes.
Yay.
That was approved. Correct.
So we should be going forward with that. So we should be doing much better as far as being able to secure a quorum going forward.
Fantastic. And was Elaine invited to this meeting, or was it too soon? Will she be?
She was invited to this meeting. I don't know if it was just too soon based off of the calendar schedule. I will reach out to her as well to make sure she's aware of everything and how we're going to go forward in person.
Perfect.
So do we acknowledge that in this meeting minutes, or wait till she actually, or she's officially on now, or?
She was sworn, I believe she was sworn in. So as soon as she's sworn in with the town clerk's office, we can officially welcome her at the next meeting that she attends.
Yeah, so we'll welcome her when she comes. I sent and each introduce ourselves, and that'll be great. So does that leave us one vacancy, Laura, or are we all set?
I believe that is it for us, because that would replace Scott.
Okay. Perfect. So that's great. That's great timing for us to try and go back to in person as well, now that we have a full board. So thank you for addressing that, Ika.
Okay. I have something else to discuss, but I don't know that it's not part of the agenda. So do we do that afterwards or?
So we would have to add it to the agenda now because it wasn't submitted. So when the agenda comes out, if you have something that you would like added to the agenda, it's easier if it gets added prior to the moment right now. But I believe we can add it now with a 2/3 vote.
With a motion and a vote, correct?
So would you like to make a motion for what you'd like added to the agenda, Ika?
Sure. And you can tell me whether it's appropriate or not. I can't get back to the video screen. I don't know. Anyway, I'm trying to get back to the.
It's okay. It's only take your
Yeah,
time.
all right. So you can still hear me. So, as you all know, I volunteer at the Simsbury Historical Society, and we will be organizing a twice postponed historic house tour for East Leithtog. It was all supposed to be part of our 350th anniversary celebrations back in 2020. Is there a role, or would the Historic District Commission like a role in that?
So first we need to make a motion to add the topic, and then one of us needs a second, and then we need to approve it, and then we can have the conversation.
Okay, so I guess adding to the agenda is the topic of the historic house tour, June 11th, 2023.
Okay, and I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so roll with it now, Ika.
Okay. So it's more just of kind of letting the Historic District Commission know that we're hoping to plan a historic house tour on June 11th, 2023. Since it's inside the historic district. So the right hand knows what the left hand is doing. And if there's any synergy that goes with that, or could go with that, or would like to go with that, I'm just kind of bringing up the topic to see what people might. In the past, I'm not sure the Historic District Commission worked together with a house tour, but it seems to me, since it's in the historic district, just at least being aware that it's trying to happen. I guess I just want to bring it to everybody's attention. Not asking anything, just kind of bringing everybody's attention.
So, Patty, do you have any thoughts?
No, I think it's a great idea. I know I have a feeling that maybe a lot of the commissioners on this committee do have houses in the historic district, and maybe they would volunteer to open them up.
So so there's I have 3 houses so far that I had started working on 2 years ago. The Allfelds agreed to have their house on a tour. Charlotte Bacon and Heidi Golden in Anita Mueller's former house. She probably gets tired of everybody calling it Anita Mueller's former house. So there's opportunities to include a house on the house tour, but also volunteers to be docents. Just basically having two people at a house. We have a list of people who have done house tours in the past that we can tap into again, but people just might be interested in that. And
so
I
to provide more information to the district as to how many homes that you look for. What is the timing of the day? Is it first floor, second floor? Is there a history aspect of each home?
Right. So all very good questions. So what we ask of homeowners, and we start with homes that are listed in this book that is a list of historic homes in the East Weetdog
Yep.
district. We decided a couple years ago to focus on different historic districts around town. So we started with East Weetdog, then we went to Hoskins district, which was really fun because that hadn't really been focused on before. East Weetdog has been the subject of a couple of house tours in the past, but Hoskins had not, and we learned a lot. We do research on the houses, and we learned a lot about new history to that whole little neighborhood, which we share with the homeowners. And then we did Fairfield, and we discovered a couple of cool things, interesting tidbits of history there too. And then we were back to East Weetdog for the 350th anniversary because that's sort of where it all started. But other districts that we can focus on is West Simsbury, Bushy Hill District, to name two other ones. So we hope to kind of make our way around Simsbury about once a year. The Hoskins district was a Christmas tour, which kind of added another spin to it. And that was fun. But we're slowly trying to focus attention to each district in town to just help people. Once, if your house is on a house tour, you learn about it, and then people learn more about the whole neighborhood and about the history there. And when you know the history, it kind of changes your whole perspective of the neighborhood. And I always like to say, when you know where you've been, you know where you're going. It kind of helps you.
So what is an ideal number of homes?
Oh, six to seven. We've done 6 in the past, 6 to 7. It kind of depends on how close they are, because people don't have time to, like, if the houses are really spread out. That's why we were just focusing on neighborhoods. If houses are really spread out, it's hard to get to them all. So if we end up with like 6 or 7, if it's all in close proximity, then people have a chance to see that.
So the June 11th would be specific to East Weetdog Street area, is that correct?
Right.
With 6,
Right.
7 homes?
For this year. And then next year, we'll probably do West Simsbury or Bushy Hill, one or the other.
And is there...
And it's on a Sunday afternoon. It's on a Sunday afternoon from 1 to 5. And tickets are $25. We might go to 30. And we find that sometimes people are hesitant to let people into their homes, but if somebody's willing to pay $25 for a ticket, it's kind of not everybody wants to, so that's fine. So the people who are willing to do that are genuinely interested in the history. It's only the first floor. Some houses have, like the Allfelds, for example, have a whole new addition to the back. We never asked to show the upstairs because it's more private, but the front part of the Allfelds house is really cool and interesting and old, and it's harder and harder to find houses that haven't changed some of the historic detail. But in their house, that the front part is of real interest, and they can show as much as they want of the back part if they want. And we try to have a traffic pattern of going in one door and then out the other door, and we have people put on blue booties at the door so that floors and carpets are protected, and then they put them in a basket as they leave. So we try to make it a simple walkthrough.
Okay.
And when we did East, let's see, the other WeTalk tour that we did Abigail's and the Pettibone house across the street, which is Julie McKay's house, and then the house behind it. And then we also did the Linden house. And she liked to show off the whole house. So everybody went through all 3 floors there. So, it's what people are comfortable with. And then we also did Pettibone's. And another house down, the Wilcoxon's house, further down Hot Meadow. And I would have liked to have added another one on, I can't remember the name of it, but of the street at the moment. But there wasn't enough time to do 7 houses, so we did 6.
Fantastic. So how do you tend to advertise for it in the past? How do you reach out? Do you just reach out directly to different homeowners or send something out?
I go and knock on people's door.
Oh my God. For you, I appreciate all your dedication to Historic Society.
Or if I know someone who can introduce me to someone, we start with looking at the houses that are in this book. I wish I had the video. Hang on, let me try to get that. Okay. Historic.
That book.
What's that?
I think I have a copy of that book.
Yeah. Hang on to it because you won't get another one. It's not to be bought anywhere. So somebody published it. And I came across this copy. Someone dropped off a copy at the Historical Society, and it's like, okay, if nobody wants that one, I'll take that one. I can use it for the historic house tour. So we basically start with the houses here that are listed in here. Okay. But with the Hoskins tour, we always like to do a house that hasn't been mentioned in there, just to add to the history a little bit better. And if we can find research on it. Mary Jane Springland helped do the historic research on these prior historic house tours, and she passed away in August. It's like really sad. So I learned so much from her, and she's so well researched. But Celia Roberts, the former reference librarian at the library, she's retired now. She's agreed to do the historic research. I can do that some, but it really takes kind of, there's a method to that madness. So I'd rather have somebody who is trained in researching and title searching, and Celia Roberts has offered to do that. I'm thrilled. Because I put that on hold for a while. I was like, oh no, how am I going to do this without Mary Jane? But so I have Celia Roberts.
Wonderful.
And that's it. And some houses have gardens that go with it, so that they can include those as much or as little as they want. But there'll be a write-up on each house. There's a little booklet. It's a little tour booklet, and it writes up the history in it. And then also each docent gets more history, so of the house that we can't fit into the booklet, so that you're getting a lot of history. And the docents will be trained, and we'll fill them in on the history that we know about the house, so that and hopefully the homeowner is home as well. We did one house without the homeowner, and it just wasn't as, the homeowner usually loves their house and loves to talk about it too, so that we were missing that kind of element. So we prefer if the homeowner was home. I think the homeowner would prefer that too. The, one of the houses in the Hoskins district on Eno Place, which was Eno Tavern. It's the exact same house as the Phelps Tavern. The exact same house, only a little taller. It was built by John Case, if anybody knows John Case, his history. And she is a single woman who lived there, so she was a little uncomfortable about having people come through her house. But she wanted to be a part of it, and that was very much a kingpin house in that neighborhood. So we wrote up a flyer for it and still talked about the house and who lived there. It was Captain Jonathan Eno of the Sheldon Horse Light Brigade lived there. And of course, there were 5 generations of Enos that lived there. And her family bought it from the last Eno. So it was Eno being a big name in town. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble and taking up people's time, but we did a house without people going in it, was my point, but still was able to share the house. And there's a group out in Colebrook that does historic reenactments, and we had one of them come on horseback in the same uniform that Captain Jonathan Eno would have had. And so he was outside the house on his horseback, on horseback, talking to people and sort of recreating that aura. So there's different spins we can do with the in the historic house tour.
That sounds like fun. It's so interesting. So in terms of your ask of, what is your exact ask, I guess, as to with
it's more just
or
it's more just that the Historic District Commission know that there's going to be a tour in the historic district.
Okay, great.
And if anybody wants to put their house on the tour, that's fine.
Okay.
And opportunities for docents, if somebody wants to be in one of the houses, then that's an opportunity too for the historic district members. Mm-hmm.
Great.
But it's not trying to twist anybody's arm or just, I think it's a good thing to be aware of, since it's the historic district, it's a tour in the historic district.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Because I think oftentimes, I know myself, I haven't always been made necessarily known about it this far in advance. And even sometimes in years, it's kind of been off the radar. So I think that residents would appreciate knowing about it.
So you asked how we advertise it. We that's the difficult part. I don't know if there's a newsletter that goes out in the Historic District Commission to all the people who live on the street.
We don't have that. And I've thought about it, even just doing an informal, trying to get email addresses of everyone on the street, and even just, something like this, putting forward and just letting them know any applications, like giving an update, even with just the minutes from the meeting. So I do think that's something interesting to think about.
I think Dagny Griswold told me that there used to be like a some association of the neighbors bigger than the Historic District Commission, that when there was an issue with, I think it was maybe turning the practice field there on Ferry Lane. Was there once talk of turning that into a soccer field or something like that?
I don't believe Ferry Lane is a part of our historic district, are they?
Yeah, so maybe not. I can't remember what, or maybe it was over there. I don't. But whenever there was an issue that threatened some aspect of the neighborhood, then you find neighbors kind of gathering, and then they had a fund And that fund paid for the sign that was there at the training ground. Do you know there used to be a sign there and somebody vandalized it? And so the town was asking us, how did that get paid for? Who put it up there? And it was that neighborhood association. But that disbanded when there was no longer that issue that kind of they all rallied around. But we put up sandwich boards in front of the houses that will be on the tour at least 2 weeks ahead of time. The day of the tour, we put big red balloons on them. We have parking signs to direct parking wherever that's needed. We send emails out through the Historical Society's email chain. We try to put something in the Valley Press about it, but they don't like to do something before an event because they don't want to be used as an advertisement, but they love reporting on it afterwards. So that's kind of a challenge. So yeah, publicity is always a challenge on getting people to know about it. I send emails with flyers on them to people that I know and then ask them to share it. And that's, if you have any other suggestions, I'm certainly open to them.
Well, the Simsbury Unite might be a great.
Oh, right. Yes.
That's wonderful. But you do have a passion, and it's lovely to see.
It's fun, actually.
Yeah.
It kind of gets to be fun.
Yeah.
When you delve into the history of it and think about what these people were doing and how they were doing it. And when it's actually reflected in the house too, when you see something that was.
Yeah, it is interesting. Our town does have such a rich history, and even just, I had always been a chaperone on the fifth grade. Each fifth grade goes through the historical societies, the buildings of the schoolhouse and the meeting house and Phelps Tavern. And when I went on the field trip the first time, I would tell every mom, oh my goodness, this is the field trip to chaperone on. It's so informative, so interesting. And it's right there in the center of town. And you have no idea of all this history that's there. So, I think we have such a rich history here, and it's very interesting.
And we have a lot of new people in town too that don't, how do they find out about it? When people live in a town, they get so busy in their regular scheduled lives that they don't stop to take a tour at the Historical Society, or we have limited hours too, which complicates things. But there are a lot of new people moving into town. How are they ever going to get even a little flavor of what history has happened here? They can through a house tour. And I got involved with the Historical Society when they did a barn tour. They did a couple of barn tours, and I have a barn on my property. And so they asked me if I would put the barn on the barn tour. It's like, yeah, sure. Okay. So what that does is it now makes you focus in on our barn, but you would focus in on your house and learn about it and find out about it. And doggone, following those footsteps in time is quite interesting. So when you actually see scribe marks in your barn that was put there by a carpenter in 1815, it's cool. But tours in general kind of help the neighborhood and the homeowner come to appreciate their own house even more and the history that's behind it. And that's important in the long run, because as new people come in, how are they going to find out, And we keep losing old timers too, which is, a lot's lost with them as well. So you try to hang on to whatever you can to just help people appreciate the history of the town, of the neighborhood, of their house, of their barn.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you, Ika. I appreciate And I know Patty does as well, putting this forward and adding this as an agenda item. And, I think we can all try and get the word out there. And I do think it's good for the historic district to be aware that this is coming up. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. And, we will definitely pass the word along. The one thing about our street is a lot of people are in touch more than you'd think on a street that's busy and doesn't really have a neighborhood association. So we can get the word out there even just through word of mouth to start. But, and maybe just kind of brainstorm on how to gain a little more participation.
We haven't been disappointed in the attendance of these house tours. So, but it's always
what tends to be an average attendance number?
Well, if it's 200, we're happy.
Wow.
Wow.
And it's been that. I should go back and look at those numbers.
How does parking work with 200? Like, I just always worry. I wonder on the street like ours.
So you kind of have to look at the environs of each house where parking possibilities are. Not everybody starts at the same time or at the same house. You can pick and choose wherever you want to go at your own speed, in whatever order you want to go. So that kind of divides cars up. But you kind of have to look around each house and figure out where you can direct traffic. And then we have signs that say event parking here, event parking there, to kind of direct people. It generally works out, and that's usually a page in the booklet that we put a little map of where each house is and where parking should be, so that people have a hint about where to go and where to park and flip. And it was kind of fun when we did Abigail's. There's still like 3 or 4 little historic details in there that are interesting, but we also got them to serve a colonial drink called Shrub, which has vinegar in it. It's you can buy it in stores too, in some specialty stores. But that was kind of cool too. It was another little aspect that we could add to the tour of, go to Pettibone Tavern, which is Abigail's Pettibone Tavern, and have yourself a shrub drink. And then you could talk about, the historic character of that drink. So we'll probably talk about at Heidi Golden's house, and I hope she doesn't get busy. She mentioned in the spring that she's going to have to do some research trip, but she has sheep and she's into wool. So I know 2 other people who are also into wool and spinning and, as they call it, fibers. They're into fibers. So we're trying to resurrect our loom in the Hendricks cottage, and they're all going to help me with that, which is great. And so maybe we can form this core group of wool people who work with wool. And she has sheep, and she uses the wool from her sheep to spin. So we'll probably do something there along the wool craft too. So it's not a historic drink, but it's a historic trade.
So it's much fun.
Yeah, there's lots of things you could, and there's in her gardens, there's the foundation of where another house used to be. So that's just kind of cool. When we do Bushy Hill, my house will be on the tour. I have an old well, and there used to be a steam sawmill on the creek that goes past my house. So you can always tie in those little stories. And an old Indian trail used to go right past my house up to Gracie Road. when you look at the 1935 map that John Ellsworth put together of where the Indian trails were, that's pretty cool. So I would probably highlight that as well when my house is on the tour.
Oh, wow.
And
That
then
sounds,
the Hoskins tour, the Hoskins district tour, that's where Old Well Tavern is. That was a hopping place because you had the river, you had Bissell's Landing, you had the old, well, the road to Terrafil is the way the settlers came from Windsor. They cross at the falls and come through Terrafil and come down into, the Hot Meadow area to farm. So that's an ancient trail too. So you show off all these little bits of history. Come to find out, Noah Phelps, when he returned from the Revolutionary War, both he and his brother Elisha were officers in the Revolutionary War. Elisha died of sickness. Thank goodness he wasn't shot or anything, but he got sick and died. But he had lent, as many people had, lent money to the war effort and then were broke. And there wasn't a new government yet to pay them back. And so he died in debt. And his brother Noah comes back from the war and tries to take over the family homestead, the Phelps Tavern. But it was the Phelps homestead at that point. It hadn't even been a tavern. So he had to buy it out of probate. He had to pay off all the debts before he could take that house over. So we discovered he built a house in Hoskins District, where St. John's Place is. That used to be the main road that came from Hoskins, crossed Route 10, came down St. John's Place, went down Eno Place, and kept going along through the meadow there. That was the main drag. That's why you have there's a couple of nice, interesting houses along that. But Noah Phelps built a house, a salt box, inside that curve, sold it to a Mr. St. John, who then his descendants kind of populated that area. So that's St. John's Place. But that house was also very close to, later in history, the railroad went through. There's still some railroad tracks there that you can find in the woods, but there used to be a flag station there, the Hoskins station. And doggone if that house didn't burn from sparks from the train. It burned down from sparks on the train, even though it had a tin siding and a tin roof. So you just learn all these things from newspapers. Mary Jane's research figured all that out. And so here Noah Phelps builds this house, sells it to Mr. St. John. He basically built the spec house so that he could earn enough money to buy the Phelps Tavern, the Phelps homestead, out of probate. And a year later, he's pulled a liquor license, a tavern license, and opened up Phelps Tavern. It's like, he just built a spec house. That's what people do today, to pay off his debts, earn some money, pay off his debts. And then he did a land lease. He owned the land under Old Well Tavern and had somebody lease the land and build the tavern there. And that was like a real trading center. You've got Terrafil, you've got the river, you've got Route 10, which was an Indian trail, and then it was a hubbub of activity there. I'm going to stop because I can just keep going.
thank you so much, Ika. It's so interesting, but I do think we probably should make a motion to adjourn.
Yes.
But that is incredibly interesting.
There is a lot of interesting things to this town. So.
I'm happy to make the motion to adjourn if anyone's willing to second.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.